Hey guys, Derek here again, addressing you right before this episode gets started. We had some technical issues with our microphones that fixed itself about 20 minutes in, but we didn't want you to miss out on that first great part of the conversation with Holly from RétroVie. So tune in. We did our best to clean it up, and we'll see you guys in the episode. Guys, welcome back to another episode of Always Making. Thanks for joining us again here in our basement. We've got another great guest on the episode today, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of things retro vintage with Holly from RétroVie. Thanks for being with us, Holly.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
If you guys are watching visually, Holly's got her big old sheet of notes here on there. And so we're going to make sure we cover everything for her and get as much information as we can out to you guys on the whole retro and vintage world that she is living. But before we do, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. And you guys know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe. And if you know any local artists, makers, creators in the Salt Lake or Greater Salt Lake area, please send them our way. Let them know about us because we'd like to have a conversation if they're willing. But we do have...
That makes it sound so sketchy.
I know, right? I mean, we're inviting people into our basement. Some people are like,
come
and hang out with us in our basement. But we do have our shows coming up. We have gone through Craft Lake City. That's over with us, DIY Fest. But we are now past that big, crazy event that we get prepped for. But now we're looking at our fall shows. We've got... we just talked about this off camera before we
have Marmalade Jam Fest, which is going to be in the Marmalade District.
Which last year was such a great event.
Oh my gosh,
so much fun.
So much fun. It was our first time doing it last year, and we were totally shocked. We had a blast. It was super fun.
So we're looking forward to that one again this year. And I know we have a few other fall markets. We're working out some details to try and get ourselves into or finalize with that, or waiting on a waiting list to see if that happens. And then you still have...
At Mill Creek, yeah, you just
I know.
Stop talking. Mill Creek Common, Mill Creek Public Market. We have the 1330 Design Collective Market and the fashion show on the 26th. I have all kinds of upcycled, vintage, awesome pieces. So make sure you go check that out.
So, and if you guys haven't seen already, the SOS vlog is now live on, I think, episode 5 by the time this episode comes out. So, but if you're following along on that, Christy has been sharing all her tips, tricks, and process of making all the pieces for that event. So go check that out and give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe if you guys want to see more things coming along.
Thank you.
But that is all of our housekeeping that we've got going on right now. So let's get into conversation. Holly, thank you for joining us here in the studio.
Yes, nice and cool down here.
Yeah, it's nice and cool down here compared to outside. Outside, we're in a nice blistering mid-90s right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's nice and refreshing down here. But we appreciate you coming down and having a conversation. But you are a vintage seller, remaker. How do you
A little
describe
bit
that?
of everything. A little bit of I'll just call myself an aficionado. I will upcycle things. I will sell vintage stuff and try to curate it in a modern manner. So I will take whatever I can find and try to figure out what to do with it, because there's too much stuff in the world and we have too much guilt with it, and so kind of trying to normalize what we do with stuff and creating a healthy home that represents us.
I love it.
Holly, we first met actually after Maker's Mart, the first one. We didn't actually meet anytime during the show till we were actually cleaning up our booths and had our first conversation with each other there. But you had a vintage booth at Maker's Mart, but how long have you been doing it before you got into that first show?
That's good. Right before the pandemic, so it's probably been about 4 or 5 years. I've been doing it more or less my whole life, being creative and kind of trying to upcycle things. But once I had done the urban flea market back circa, I guess that'd be 2020, of like the end of the year. Thanks. I remember being in a mass doing that. Then I got in the old Flamingo, and then things kind of took off from there. As I mean, there's definitely a learning curve of creating a business out of this as compared to just being a hobbyist, of being a crafter. But the more that you interact with other people and you see how to create displays and what pricing is, and kind of find a niche of what you like to sell and what you like to buy, then it started to take off. and have gotten into doing some furniture commissions and just continued learning new skills.
So, is this a full-time gig for you?
Ish.
Full-time
Ish.
gig.
Is this it? Yeah, it's like what part of it? What part of it with that? So I teach skiing during the winter, and then I actually run a business with my brother. I grew up in the coin-op business with video games, like arcade video games. And so I have about 15 Touch Tunes jukeboxes at different bars and restaurants.
Okay.
And then I teach skiing during the winter. So I try to have lots of tax write-offs and driving around and finding things. So if I'm driving one place, but then I find something on the side of the road and I can haul it in, then yeah, it's all business, right?
It's all business.
Totally.
With that.
So you do a few things with the vintage. You're not just doing markets. You're not just doing like online sales. You've got yourself in a bunch of other retail stores as well. So like vintage antique malls or like secondhand stores and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the market in Salt Lake has been continually growing, and Salt Lake's been such a hidden gem for me. I was in Park City for 15 years, moved down to Salt Lake thinking that it wasn't going to be my scene as an athlete, and I came down here and I'm like, oh, I love these arts nerds down here, and I love these other makers. And I had originally was in the Old Flamingo, which shout out, it's in the Old Baldwin Radio Factory. Then switched out of there, was in Haight Ashbury home before that went online, and then had the opportunity to move about 2 months ago over to Oliver Princess Natasha, which it's named after the old owner's dogs. So I feel like that's easier to remember now. So yeah, there's been several different co-ops that have been renting space out of, but it's great because it's not just my stuff. There's something for everybody in there, and the game is just getting really cool in Salt Lake because there's makers, but there's also people curating different styles of vintage. So for all sorts of different kinds of homes, whether you're, up in the Marmalade District, or you're in Rose Park, or you're down in Sandy, just anywhere around the city or the state, there's more and more places that people can find things that have already been curated and cleaned up, fixed, and are ready to go to be in your home.
Yeah.
So what was the first piece, if you remember, that you did that kind of inspired you to go all in with it?
There was that's a good question. I had a dresser is probably the one that was the biggest commitment and learning curve. The thing I love about upcycling things and refurbishing is no one's gatekeeping any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I swear I've learned more from different makers on, I guess I don't use TikTok much, but definitely YouTube, Instagram, but people sharing, this is how I did this. And so just creating Pinterest boards, stuff like that, and just figuring out on my own. But I had a dresser. I was at the Other Side Thrift Academy, Thrift Boutique, which has the academy that they support, and I was dropping some stuff off, and I saw this dresser sitting there that hadn't even gone in front of the store. I said, can you give me a deal if I get that? What would you price it at? If I take it there, you can create a sale tag, I'll go to the front, load it right into my car. So it was kind of one of those waterfall dressers.
Oh, gorgeous.
And yeah, it was lovely, and I was just taken by it. You fall in love at first sight. And I had stripped it all down, which took forever because just knowing sandpapers and how to do all this stuff. But I ombre stained all the different drawers, and so the first one was plain, and then going down all the subsequent drawers was like 1 coat of stain, 3 coats of stain, 5 coats of stain, 7 coats of stain. So it was getting progressively darker all the way down. And then I think there was some damage on the side, so I put some paintable wallpaper and then painted that and replaced the knobs. And so then I actually had a piece of glass cut on the top. So yeah, it was I put a lot of work into it and was really proud, and it sold pretty much right away when it moved in. I was like, oh, okay, that was cool. Maybe I could have priced it more, but I'm really glad that I did a good job on it.
Yeah.
And, trying to earn my keep, and you have to produce enough to be able to put your name out there so you can earn that value and create customers.
That piece was around that 2020 time, or was that a little bit before that?
Right around 2020. I mean, I've been doing things in my own. My bed is a door from the recycle center up in Park City. It's like that. It's like a full-on door. This headboard.
I've seen the recycle center online, and it's one of those places we want to head up to and kind of look at. We love hitting up those like kind of like weird little gems that you never know what you're gonna find inside of it, because it's like the cool kind of thing. You're like, oh look at, I found a door and I'm gonna make a bed out of it.
Recycle centers are and different reuse centers. Like shout out to all the Habitats for Humanity and the it's up north, south of Ogden, but to the east, it's out the landfill recycle center up there.
I've not heard of that.
In from like Roy Center area.
I'll have
we
to
don't
look that one up.
know that
I
one.
don't know.
Yeah, it's
okay.
great. You just have to, because people drop off things, and so it helps support and offset the cost of recycling things, and being able to break down e-waste and stuff like that. So it's all kind of that sustainability and ethical consumerism.
Yeah, that's cool. I did not know about that place. We're gonna have to check that place out on one of these weekends that we get free, which we don't get a lot of those lately.
What, a free weekend?
Yeah, the fall will be coming, but it's great to get different building supplies and bits of tile or pieces of wood or different hardware pieces that are fun that you can dream up into something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you don't just stay in the Salt Lake area. That's one of the things when we were having a conversation at one of the markets. You have a trailer and you travel all across the country or a few states?
All over the place. We're families in Minnesota, so definitely have. It initially started during COVID when I drove back to Minnesota to see family, and I was like, oh wow, I can pick stuff up along the way, or I can bring stuff back from my family's home, things that I've gotten from other relatives that have since passed, and bringing them all back. I grew up in a house that's 100 years old, so there's certain things in an older neighborhood and whatnot, and I started to find sourcing things from different places. There were obviously different populations of people live in different areas, and as they get older or people are just going through their homes, they're going to end up in the thrift stores or yard sales, estate sales, whatever, and there's going to be different things in different regions. So driving stuff back there, but kind of famous for either buying a one-way ticket and getting a vehicle and driving back, or I will literally show up to my best friend's house in Pittsburgh just with like a little bag, and she's like, what did you bring to wear? I was like, well, you'll put me in stuff. She's like, I went out there, no lie, for her, like she had just had surgery, and I was like, I will drive the car, but we're going thrifting. So in Pittsburgh, we bought 2 huge boxes, and that was my checked bags coming home.
We are a big fan of whenever we go somewhere is to like at least hit up one thrift store or maybe a flea market or something. I'm always looking for older cameras for my collection. You never know what I might find, and then you just never know. I think those type of souvenirs have more value to a trip to us in that sense than it does to like, oh, let me get the trinket that's like in every gift shop and ends up in a landfill kind of thing. So I do want to get into your process of your curation, because that's one of the things you take pride and joy in, is that you're not just doing your work on your pieces, you're actually taking an idea for each show and then expanding it and making each show a new experience.
Yes. So I'll start rattling off some stuff, and please feel free to interject anytime that you have a question or if something's not clear. But I saw something online once that said, what would I buy today if I had the budget? Because sometimes we get so excited when things are priced affordably that we just want to like keep buying and buying. And when you first start sourcing things, which is like obviously picking out my inventory, it's something beyond just like buying things at thrift stores to sell, because that's a very frequent question people ask me when I'm selling things at markets. And it takes time to figure out what you really love. You kind of have to really start to listen to your own gut instincts of what you want to buy, because at the end of the day, you're stuck with this stuff. You invested in it, and if you can't find somebody to buy it, you still have it. And so
you're looking at all these things you buy as pieces that you're going to put in your place potentially, and if they sell, you're not so heartbroken about it going away, but it's like, if they don't sell, okay, this had a place in my...
Sometimes a little bit of both. Sometimes I'm like, I just buy something and the thought's not really there whether I want to keep it or not. And then usually, as you know, we all run in a space to put things, our tchotchkes on, and by the time you dust the first time, you realize, okay, maybe I don't need this. Maybe I got to enjoy it. But it's like, we're only guardians of stuff for so long, and it's one of those things that if we can see somebody else enjoy it, then maybe that's the point of it all. Instead of just like secretly shaming ourselves for stuff, we get to enjoy it. And I got to see it in my space, and then I got to see it in somebody else's space, you know, or like have it set up, and I knew that we're going to be, you know, taking it home to complement something for their home. But the main thing that I do that, and I don't know what everybody else does per se, but the main thing I do is try to source or shop for my stuff, like not at the local DI or Goodwill or Bins or Savers and stuff. Yeah, sure, I go in there because, man, sometimes we need that dopamine fix. But I don't want to just be shopping in the same puddle of stores and seeing the same inventory that everybody else is seeing, because I don't know if some of these great items are something that somebody else had in their shop and just returned because it didn't sell. Because there are times that I see other people's stickers on them from different stores, and you know that it was something that somebody else had, which nothing wrong with it. You know, I mean, that's the one thing, is that they bought it because they knew it had some sort of interest to them. And in general, people who sell things and are vintage curators do take the time to clean things up and handle them properly. So it's not something that was maybe sitting in someone's garage, or, you know, sometimes it's, you have to clean things thoroughly, you know, before you sell them. So you know that at least they've been clean. So not to diss on anybody else, but I definitely try to source things more locally, individually, from Facebook Marketplace, KSL. And then I found, if I'm looking for something in particular that's maybe a little bit more oddball, or I want to just throw the net a little bit deeper, I use Craigslist, because we have KSL here, which is fantastic, and it's still really safe to be buying things because they have the in-app messengers and whatnot. But KSL is still really big in like California and stuff, so all the people who have moved up from different places.
You mean Craigslist?
Craigslist, thank you.
Yeah.
Craigslist, because we have KSL. Thanks. But yeah, they still use it in other places. So if you're willing to drive across state lines, or there's somebody who's newer that just doesn't maybe know about the other ones, just another place to cast your net.
Yeah, I will, whenever we go back to see family in California, I'm always on Craigslist. I was on Craigslist like at the beginning of it and loved it, because I'd get rid of like cameras that I was like, okay, I'm over this camera, onto the next thing. Or like, oh yeah, we had some furniture, but that was the thing. There was no KSL back in California. So, but yeah, it's one of those things. Every time I'm like, oh, let's see if there's anything new that popped up that's going to be around the corner from where I'm going to be at, and maybe I might find a gem.
Definitely have done that myself as well. And you know, they're all good. You just have to kind of know what the range is, because sometimes if somebody's older that's selling things, I think everybody knows how to use Facebook now. My mom's an expert at it, but you know, sometimes they'll just pick one, and if Craigslist was the first one, then you know that's what they're comfortable, because that's where they have the account set up on. So yeah, either way, it's great to, you know, do things locally. And I kind of call it my community economy, that I know that the thrift stores do a great thing for the community of feeding people and clothing people and giving them employment opportunities and stuff like that. And I do like to support that, and I definitely donate things back to them, and shop for my clothes there. But I also try to give cash to local people, and because then that gives me a chance to tell them what I do, that I will be reselling this, but I also take the time to clean it up. I'm going to curate it with other like items. Like during one of the last markets, was it the one that we were with? And I did the red, white, and blue theme. Was it right around 4th of July?
Yeah, you were doing
that
up there at Brighton. That's some of your stuff was that kind of
like
themed around
Americana.
Yeah. So I did that because the first I did Brighton 2 weeks in a row, and I can't remember when we were together there, but I did kind of a Western theme, Americana and Utah Southwest stuff, and then the next week I did uh, what's more American than Coca-Cola and baseball and different soda pop stuff, and then I had a whole bunch of red, white, and blue theme stuff, and summer entertaining and summer wedding gifts that people could do. So I'll try to curate stuff. So I always tell them what I do. I find a lot of times people are like, oh, well, if you're doing that, I got this or that to sell. Next thing I know, I'm having dinner with the family. I come back the next day with my trailer. I see a neighbor's dragged a piece of furniture across the lawn. I'm like, I have a dolly. I can carry that. But yeah, I try to pay people fairly for that. And I know these little bits of money going back into people's pockets has, allows them to do other things. It doesn't matter to me what they do with it, but like it just keeps funding things. It gets things out of their house so they can buy something else or fund a trip or pay off a bill or something like that. And a lot of times, like if somebody's having a yard sale or they're selling something, they feel that they have too much stuff. And so they're trying to offload stuff. So they're grateful when somebody wants to buy something. It's a great trade to have money in your pocket and then get rid of stuff. Or like the estate sale route, or if somebody has a ton of stuff from family members or somebody who's passed, that they already have the trauma that the person has died, but then they have the guilt of like, I don't know what to do with their stuff. Yep. So it's a reassuring thing to say, hey, I'm going to treat this with the care and the respect, and I have plenty of opportunities with what I do to make this look really good and put it in an environment where people can actually find it. And my very favorite thing about this isn't this, I'm sure I get dopamine like a moment. I like to shop and it's in my blood. But when somebody walks into my booth at a market or in a co-op that I'm working in and goes, oh, and I have no clue what they're, getting excited about, but I know I've closed the loop, that I've done justice for that item, that they, even if they didn't buy it, they got to enjoy it and experience it, or take it home, something that they may have been looking for or reminded them of something from earlier in their life. So I feel like we don't always acknowledge what stuff can do to us with like having good memories and like telling stories and sharing things about our lives and kind of just helping us interact as humans.
So you mentioned having dinner with family and the local community. I imagine you have some really great stories.
Yes. I was at a yard sale once, and sometimes you just have to check in with yourself of like, so I went to this one yard sale, and these people had fruit trees all over their yard. Delightful people. And they were feeding me fruit off their trees, and I was like meeting all the family members, and I was telling them what I do, and I refurbish stuff, and I had already committed to buying like 2 pieces of their furniture there that are there out in the lawn, and a bunch of other really fun stuff. And they're like, oh, come in our house, we have in our basement, I have this great 1940s vanity with a big circular mirror on it. And so I'm like, okay, cool. You know, towards the end of the day, I go in and their house, and they're like, hold on. They're pulling up the rug on the floor, and they pull up this trap door for the basement.
Oh,
my
jeez.
And I was like, well, I've been hanging out here for a while already. I had to think to myself, and I think it's important as a human to really listen to your gut instincts. And I did think about it. I was like, well, you know, I don't have any. I've not had a single inkling of things being like going awry yet, and I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character after teaching skiing for over 20 years of like reading people in different situations. And so I was like, well, we're just gonna roll with this one. So I go into this windowless basement and see the most beautiful dresser, which I ended up buying. I came back like the next day or day after and ended up loading all this furniture in my car, which they helped me load there. And yeah, it was one of those things that, I went totally down into someone's basement.
How did you get the dresser
How did
out
they
of a
get
trap
the
door?
How did they get the
Well,
furniture down there?
There was a stairwell, but they lifted up the trap door to like get to this stairway, and it was like cinder blocks. There were like no windows, so it was like an absolute dungeon. And I was like, well, okay, guess this is happening.
We're doing this.
But I did definitely think, I'm like, did you feel at all of any tinge of anything? And I didn't. So I was like, I'm gonna go with this, you know.
First, they were giving you the fruit that was poison laced
Yeah,
and get you
and
to
I was, like,
sleep.
thinking of
And
that,
it comes
and-
down to, look, I got more vintage in my basement.
And actually, when I went back there, they had like picked a whole bunch of the apricots and stuff, so they had more fruit for me. Delightful people. So it was just one of those really weird things. And this happened to me very recently, that so during the pandemic, I had sold my high school backpack, and I just had too many bags. We're in Utah. We all do a million things outside, and who doesn't have a million bags? My joke is even my baggage has luggage, So fast forward, didn't think about this North Face backpack that I had. I was at a local store, and I was kind of on the side of town. And so I was like, well, I'll just wander in. It's towards the end of the night. I'll just see what's in there. And so I go in there, I'm flipping through the bags, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks like my high school backpack that I had sold, no lie, probably it was very, very beginning of the pandemic, because I remember where I sold it. So it was like just when I was in my new place, which I've been in several years now. And I look at it and I'm like, well, that's where I had the pin on the front of it in high school. And that's where I cleaned up the whiteout I spilled in there. And so I spent almost $20 buying my backpack back. That I think I sold for $20. So I'm like, well, okay. Thanks, Mom, for buying that. Mom and Dad for buying that in high school. But
because it was meant to stay in your life.
I guess it was. And I'll definitely sell it again. I guess I don't need to keep it. I just want to make sure it gets to the right owner. It's a great North Face backpack. So shout out if you need a backpack, because I have a really good cobalt blue North Face. It's clean. At least I washed it before I sold it, and maybe I'll wash it again. So yeah, that was a fun story.
When you are picking up these pieces, so you do markets on the weekends, it's like you have stuff selling throughout the week at shows, but you talked about yard sales. Yard sales are primarily weekends, and then thrift stores all the time. When do you find time to actually go through the process of like cleaning these up, curating, and getting them out to actual shows?
All the time. There's 24 usable hours in every day. I am fortunate enough, being an entrepreneur, that my schedule is flexible. Sometimes when it rains, it pours. We work really long days. We're prepping for shows, or once you start a process of something, you got to keep the ball rolling. But I have I call it my storage shop. So I actually have I guess it's a storage unit, but it's a commercial garage in a residential neighborhood. And so I still do business out of my house, is where my tax license is and stuff like that. But I have the opportunity to store a lot of stuff there. And so I have enough stuff, and I've organized it enough that it originally goes in my house first there.
and then I will take it over to kind of inventory it. But a lot of the work I do and kind of looking through what I have and pulling things together and trying to get clever little themes of like whether I'm doing a certain color or like a garden party or like Mad Hatter. Like I collect things for vintage Christmas stuff all year for the Craft Lake City, the holiday market. So shout out to Craft Lake City. Yeah, I just 24/7 doing it. So it's kind of like anytime I run my dishwasher, I'm probably running glassware through that. At any point in time, there's probably something soaking in my bathtub at home. I way back in the day in Park City, I cleaned vacation rentals. So I learned how to clean a lot of things. And so that is something that I probably do spend an inordinate amount of time on is cleaning stuff. But I always want to make sure that I feel like I have a responsibility with doing this stuff, that cleaning it properly. So I mean, you don't want to give anybody bed bugs or like have something that you're going to get a splinter in them or something like that. So yeah, it's kind of all over the place. So my house,
we get that.
yeah, but yeah, it's part of it, I guess.
So you mentioned Craft Lake City right there, and what I did, we just had Tiana on a couple episodes back, and she mentioned that you were part of their mentor program, and their scholarship program,
Yes.
right? Okay, so how did that whole thing go for you?
So Craft Lake City's been a really good I guess business incubator for me. I've learned, even though I had been an experienced seller, there's always more to learn. Like you never know everything you need to know, even if you've been doing it. And so I was paired up with the Soy Murga. Sorry, I wanted to make sure I said the name of the company right. And it was a great experience of knowing like how much inventory do I bring to a multi-day event, and like what's the pricing, and like how do you do like promotions if people are buying several things, like how do you run specials for people, how do you get people to come back, how do you do your social media so you can continue branding, like what are the things that you can brand yourself, like with the bags that you like, if somebody purchases something, you put something in the bag, and like how do you give them your card, and like so a lot of that stuff. And so I was able to be part of that initial Craft Lake City as part of the scholarship group, which just basically meant that I got my hand held a little bit, which is delightful because you don't always get that in this world where you feel like initially you're competing with people, and when you realize you're all in this together and you get to interact with people of different creative endeavors that blow my mind, makes me feel like an imposter sometimes at Craft. Like I was like, oh, you guys are real artists. I like put stripes on furniture and I can rewire lights and reframe art, and look, there's glassware that's in rainbow colors. Isn't that fun? Like I rebeaded some bracelets. Isn't that great? But so I got to just have my eyes opened of like how to continue to market yourself, whatever kind of product you have. And then through Craft Lake City, I did the Holiday Fest. I've done that 2 years in a row. I'm coming back for my second year at the Craft Lake City DIY Fest. Yeah. And then I did with Celtic Bank the Business Academy, which helped me write a whole new business plan, which I used AI to help me do that. But learning about the different, when I'm ready to get some business lending, how to negotiate that. And then through startup.utah.gov, all the different resources as a business owner, whether, because you kind of feel that you're not a true business owner when you're in the creative fields, but we obviously have the same tax laws and the same business record keeping and ledgers that we have to do as anyone else with inventory and stuff like that. So it's just having my eyes open to how you do all that and some of the best business practices I've learned through Craft Lake City, and then also different mentors I've had through the different co-ops I've been in, which I've been so grateful for.
Yeah, the program seems like it's kind of giving you that next step in the business process for you, and kind of that little bit more confidence to like kind of maybe expand and grow what you're doing. Pricing, curating all of your like shows and stuff like that. Do you feel like there was a change from before you were doing some of these things with Craft Lake City and other mentors to where you are now?
Yes and no. I think there's a bigger, a better fluidity of it, of being able to know my pricing a lot quicker when people are like, what's the best deal you can do on that?
Yeah.
And being able to back it up, because sometimes people do want to barter things down. And
Oh, I always double the price up and then just be like, hey,
Yeah,
what's the
there's
best deal you can have? Yeah. Well, it was $50. It's $100 now. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's different formulas
Yeah.
for that. And it's like, if you're making something, it's hard to price things when it's something that's like, do I go off the price I bought it for if I didn't pay very much for it, but I spent, like, what is my time worth?
That's a struggle I think a lot of artists have, is what is the value of your time? Because if I do a piece that's costing me 30 hours of my time and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do $5 for it, is that real? Like, that's not
Exactly.
yeah.
There's a famous story of Picasso is in a restaurant, a cafe, and somebody says, oh, you're Picasso, and can you draw me something? Here's a napkin and a pen. And so he scribbles something there and, ask for some money. He's like, that only took you 5 minutes to do. And he said, no, it took me 40 years to learn how to do it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, it's hard to tell people sometimes what how long it is to do something. Because if it takes you too short of time, does that mean that you're just really good at it?
Yeah.
Or that we kind of half-assed it?
Yeah. Experience is a valuable like commodity. And so there are times where like, hey, like, just because you've made like all these efforts to reupholster 20 stools, by the 20th stool, you've now done it in 10 minutes instead the first stool was 2 hours kind of thing. You're like, okay, that doesn't devalue that last stool. That value should increase for that last stool because of all that experience
with it. And I mean, you learn things of like being able to eyeball a piece of fabric and knowing whether, if you find some random scrap of fabric, if it's going to work, or like looking at the stretch, or if the pattern's going to line up, or just having the right materials, knowing how much foam is in there. Because I mean, God only knows that when you pull off the upholstery of that, please, people, just take it all off and don't. There's so much gross stuff in horsehair and stuff like that, and like, don't do that to people. You already have enough allergies in Utah. So yeah, I always like, it's caught me a couple times, hit me in the bud, when you pull everything off and you put some new foam padding there, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I didn't realize it wasn't going to stretch that far. The padding was thicker just because people had sat in the other one. It was flat, and so you have to learn how to do these things, but it takes an initial investment to buy my staple gun and to buy the materials and to buy the fabric. Just because I have it now, sure, it's just a percent of that I'm charging, but it's kind of trying to work out a formula based on the condition it was, what I had to do to get it back in the condition that I wanted to sell it with, and then just the general age, if it's a mid-century modern, if it's art deco, if it's solid, if it's a hardwood versus just
also like rarity of the piece
too,
in that
of
sense.
the piece, for sure.
But there is a lot of different variables that go into each one of your pieces when you are going to a show and you're curating your full like setup and everything. How do you know you have enough stuff? and how do you know you've priced your stuff to kind of make sense for that show? Because as you've had experience with different shows are going to bring different clientele, different value, and also you need to pay for your booth fee, you need to pay for your time, and so sometimes pricing stuff too low, you might price yourself out of the market in that sense. But how do you know? Let's start first. How do you know about how you brought enough?
I always try to bring too much. What I have found,
Does the door on the trailer close every time? Like,
yeah, like there's scratches in the side of my car because I've like pushed things in, and thank goodness it's just like me in there and I can still drive safely. That is something I value. And yeah, I do drive with the trailer ridiculously full, but I promise I always over engineer it. So like I'm not jeopardizing anybody else's safety on the road because I expect them to do the same with their trailer loads, of stuff. But I will overbring stuff because sometimes things just don't make sense, or and I know I want to have a big enough range of products. I watch people when they'll either walk into a co-op, a thrift store, or into a market, and I watch the people who are like, "Oh, this is great! Look at there's craft stuff all over the place," and then the other people just sit there and their eyes get big and they're like, "What? How do I deal with this?"
Yeah.
There's not enough semblance of order, and so I find that if I can create some categories that people can shop, and there's a big enough range of interest and prices, that I know that at minimum selling volume is still going to create profit.
Yeah. We talk about that on here a few different times, where our range of what we sell at markets and stuff range from as cheap as $1 upwards and up kind of thing, and some high value pieces when we go to certain markets. But we know, because we have such a variety and such a range, and that price kind of vary, anybody who wants to come in and support has a way to go, oh yeah, I can support with this smaller piece, or hey, I really like these bigger pieces, I can support with that. And it does really, volume does help. There are a lot of online tutorials and tricks and tips and things that are like, find the one thing you're good at and sell the one thing you're really good at. And I'm like, oh man, that's boring. Like,
People have given me that very sage advice, which overall it's, I think, a good piece of advice for people to not get too cluttered in what they're offering, but you also have to know what you're passionate about, because even though I have a wide variety of what I do and what I sell, I'm not buying just anything and everything. There's certain things that are not my niche. Don't have kids yet, love them, but there's another maker that I will sell baby stuff to because I know that it's going to be so awesome for them. And so knowing other people, if you find something really cool to pass it along to, but there's definitely certain things, just not my niche. I don't know a lot about things, and so I will leave it for other people.
Yeah.
Unless it's kind of a one-off. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That'd be fun to see if I could sell that. I can see there's value, but
yeah, there is this side of things where, like, we talk about this also on other episodes, where there's enough out there for everybody. Like, you don't have to specialize in all of it. You don't have to collect everything and kind of hoard it and go, hey, I'm going to try to sell this and make the most, because there are so many vintage sellers and resellers and people who are curating these things. And you're like, man, I love that curation over there, but I don't even want to touch that stuff. I want, like, this stuff feels more me kind of thing. So finding your voice, I think, is very important to that whole aspect of it.
And there's so many, different styles with, there's kind of like the Betty Crocker bright kitchen, I call it, or like the 70s hippie, all the way to like more of a demure mid-century modern that has maybe more muted colors and natural elements to it. So, I mean, there's a whole range, and then you can start to get into some of the actual antiques, and it's, like I like things that are eclectic, but, it's having that balance of things, and I just try to buy and sell whatever I randomly come across, because it's it's taking something that's already been deemed obsolete and making it relevant again is something I get joy out of. But I also just try to find a big range of what to sell, because I think the number one thing you learn when you work in any kind of sales environment is you can never make an assumption of what kind of money anybody has. And so it's just going out there and having fun and just interacting with people, and because you just never know who's going to buy what.
I can wholeheartedly, like, agree and understand where you're coming from, because when we sell our vintage cameras, I have such
Yeah.
a passion and drive for cameras. When I find someone who's really interested, it's
Yeah.
like I maybe talk too much about it to them, but it's one of those, hey, I want to give you as much information to go have, because like the first camera I had, the first attempt that I did for photography, and it failed miserably, but I still continued to. I want people to have that same failure and love to want to keep growing with
Yeah.
it, because it's
Yeah.
like, oh man, there's so much like of passion and drive behind what is this like tool that is like anybody can go pick one of these things up, but to actually like continue and like struggle and learn and grow is the bigger part
No,
that
by
like a
all
lot of
means.
people will not push past, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So I really do. So it's same concept of that you're like, hey, I found this cool piece, I really want it to find the right home for somebody. So like, hey, when it finds the right home, you're gonna have that like kind of like deeper conversation with that
Yeah.
person, because
Yeah.
it meant something for you.
By all means. And I love with there being so much stuff in this world, not to be like a negative Nancy about it, but there's no need to gatekeep on any of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like if people are like, "Oh, I love what you did. I don't need that." I'm like, well, they're like, and then they'll start telling me about a piece that they have, and I can give them some ideas, or
Yeah.
you know, they can connect with me on Instagram, or I can give them my number, my card, and you know, give them some tips on stuff, or tell them to take a picture of it. I'm like, if you like it, take a picture of it.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
I've learned how to do this from other humans, so you know, like I can share those ideas of how to do some simple things, because sometimes people don't always realize things that they can do that's not super hard, because it can be really cumbersome to totally refinish something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can be a lot of effort.
It's a lot of effort.
And as you start peeling some of those layers, like you've said already, oh, things are gonna kind of pop up, and you go, "Ooh, I need to change that," or there's broken this, or there's horsehair in the phone.
Yeah, or there's some of the older wood, it's gonna take in the stain differently.
Yeah.
And there's different levels of wood on there. Like with veneer is kind of a bad word now, but in the past it was like a really high quality piece of wood, like a hardwood or a burl wood or something like that, that was just a thin layer over the top over other real wood. And so sometimes it's trying to figure out how to even just clean it up. Sometimes just cleaning things up and using, you know, products that aren't toxic or reasonably non-toxic, you know, from Home Depot, and how to repair things and fix little things, and changing out knobs and lining drawers and just different things like that. Or you can use it more if you get some drawer clips, so then the drawer won't pop out when the grandkids are around, that, you know, because people are like, I have a great buffet that I want to use, but I'm too worried about my grandkids pulling it out. So you can give, you know, you can share ideas through having this dialogue by creating an environment that's not just like buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I sell enough stuff that just because they're not going to buy that one piece doesn't mean they're not going to buy something else. Or maybe they buy nothing at that market, but then they see me at the next market and they're like, oh, you're the one who had the conversation about that sideboard I have.
Yeah.
And
Or maybe they tell their friends about you.
Yeah.
Or it comes up conversation. Oh, I saw this great, vintage seller. I can tell you about her.
Yeah.
100%.
I always talk about it where it's like, I appreciate just the person coming in the booth and going, that's really cool, or like, I really like that, or that was like, and they don't buy anything, because I'm like, wow, it meant something to them. There was a moment that was shared at that point, kind of thing. And it's okay that they don't buy something and they move on, but they're here supporting, and they saw something that was like, I'm like, oh, I did something cool.
yeah,
in that sense.
just seeing people, the amount of people who show up to markets, and like how intergenerational it is, to be able to bring everybody in and be shopping with things. And I love just inviting people in, you know, like I have a nice tent, shout out Sam's Club, but I'll be like, oh, it's so much cooler under this tent, come on under. And you know, and so we look at something, I'm like, you can pick that up, you could look at it. I'm like, if I didn't break it yet, which breaks stuff all the time, 7 stitches in my shin. But it's like, I encourage people to interact with things, you know. I'm like, I know how to clean it, like, we can just clean it off again. I got Lysol wipes if you're worried about it, you know? So it's like just encouraging people to interact with stuff, which might help them purchase it, but it also gets them to appreciate it on a different level of
Mhm.
like, wow, things really were quality. That is a heavy music class. Wow, that's is really unique the way that that was forged together. Like that's a true artisan that like made that piece of pottery with
Yeah.
that. So getting people to appreciate, and then that's when the stories start flowing out. Or I had a grandmother that had stuff like that, and those are the moments where I continue to. It's my research.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I'd rather learn things by talking to different human beings that maybe did own that back in the day. Oh, you've played that board game?
Yeah.
Does it look like
Did-
it has all the pieces?
yeah.
I went through that and I cleaned it all up and it looks like it did.
Yeah. Did you have fun
Yeah.
playing that game,
Yeah.
or did that cause like family drama? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I want to talk about your inventory backlog, like what you have, because what you take to a show is one thing, but I can only imagine you have quite a bit of stuff like in your storage unit, or is it empty pretty consistently and you're constantly having to refill it?
Wouldn't that be fun? Wow, like first in, first out, first in, last out. Accounting practices. But no, I have a little bit of a glut at this point in time. Because people know that I'm so excited about this, and I do try to support people. I have helped people in different situations where I know that they're getting rid of a storage unit. So I will buy something sight unseen. If I had a friend that had a situation where he moved quickly and had to part ways with some stuff, and so tried to support people with that, and we'll just pick up things. And then I will also buy different displays, because if I'm going to do a market at Mill Creek, which is for those who don't know, there's different market opportunities. Sometimes it's a day, sometimes it's a
Month long?
a month
yeah.
long, like 6-week long market, or you're part of a co-op that
Yeah.
you're there permanently. And so I have a bunch of different kind of storage displays, but I also will bring things to every market that I will sell everything I have.
Yeah.
I want my customers to know I find really cool stuff, and with pretty minor exception, I will sell everything I have. Oh, you like that picture frame stand? That's for sale. I will flip anything I can. Like sometimes I won't separate things, but oftentimes I've sold just the lampshade off of that. I try to have things turnkey so they're ready for people to buy, but I also will sell separates of stuff. I mean, I don't normally separate glassware per se. Sometimes people can I just buy one of these 4? And I'm like, I'd rather not separate those. But in general, no, I will sell all my shelving, my displays, all the little funny little stands to try to make it so it's visually pleasing when people walk in.
So we talked about this. You're buying supplies. So you've got backlog and stuff. How often are you purchasing stuff, and then how quickly is that stuff, because you're going through the process of cleaning, repairing, any of that stuff, how quickly does that then go to market for you?
That's a good question, because I do have a couple dressers and some tables and chairs that are, I feel like it's, when you're doing stuff like this, sometimes it's easiest to be working on several things simultaneously, because it's like it's just such a process of like sanding, and like between each coat you're resanding and then re-cleaning. It just takes time, and so you might as well, when something is drying, to be working on another piece. And so oftentimes I'll be doing several things simultaneously, or I'll be doing sets in multiples. Like I do have a Haywood Wakefield table with 2 leaves, and then I have 6 full chairs. I have an extra one to kind of cannibalize with that, and so that'll be a big project, and I'll move several 7 huge pieces of stuff out, but that'll be like one big project that'll create a lot of space. But I feel like I've encountered a lot of things by just, people literally contacting me, like people I sold a year ago on Facebook Marketplace, I'll get somebody reaching out like, hey, I kept your number. I have some more stuff. We're trying to downsize a little bit more. Or people will literally just give me things, which I try to always do kind things in return. Like I will, frame something for them and give it back and try to reciprocate, because I think that's all part of this karma mentality. But there's been twice that I've gotten a call, hey, this house needs to be vacated, and they're gonna just tear out everything. And so I've been there at weird times, either first thing in the morning trying to take apart that Haywood Wakefield table in the basement that they had remodeled, and the stairs, it didn't fit out unless I took it completely apart.
Yeah.
Another one was like, the house is going to be torn down to the studs, and that all these cool things. So I was pulling down light fixtures and like all sorts of different funky things on built-ins, and pulling the drawer pulls off of it and stuff like that. So just trying to make use of stuff that's going to get thrown away otherwise.
Yeah.
Because it's still good to use. Like I'm never going to take anything from somebody without asking, but when I've given those opportunities, it also helps that they know that, in their consciousness, that something is going to get reused.
Yeah, it's gonna be appreciated.
Yeah.
How organized is all of your back stock? Is it? You said off camera you're not a hoarder, but
I'm not a hoarder. It's in a separate spot, so it's like everything is organized. Shout out to my friend Scott out in Kentucky, Ohio from college that flew in. He actually flew in from Kentucky to help me organize this whole mess of this commercial garage. Basically pulled everything out. He's like, I went and bought a whole bunch of beautiful red metal storage shelving units from the Home Depot, and he helped me reorganize it all. Could have definitely done it, but it's hard to commit to that level of physical moving and just that time frame and stuff. So, and
also a helping hand for lifting and things like that is definitely nice to have sometimes.
So that's why I wanted to have a special shout out to my friend Scott, that,
Thank you, Scott.
a very dedicated friend that's helped me, actually took his time to be able to come on his vacation to help me. And so I'm eternally grateful. And so trying to pay it forward, definitely have a new sense of like what I have, because I could see it easier.
Yeah.
It's hard to pull the trigger on like getting several big shelving units when everything's just kind of piled up.
Yeah.
It's kind of when it rains, it pours. Like I had moved out of a store that had closed, and then I had gotten finished with the 6-week market. So I had displays from all intents and purposes 2 stores plus my market rotation. And so I just had a kind of glut of stuff. And so was able, once the weather was good, and, just start selling things. And so that's kind of why I started selling things. Be like, okay, what can I transport easily? Okay, cool. I'm going to bring that to a market and see if I can sell that.
Yeah. We are going to be coming up on time here for the episode, but I hope we've covered a good chunk of everything you wanted to cover on this episode. But I do want to make sure people, if they want to find you, see all the different stuff you're doing, where is the best place they can find more information about RétroVie and you, Holly, online there?
Definitely Instagram. That's kind of my favorite platform. I post as much as I can. I love flipping through it, but it's RétroVie_SLC. Otherwise, I'm in Oliver, Princess Natasha. It's on Major Street, right half a block west off of State Street, between 13th South and 17th South, where Salt Lake Community College is, by Roja Brewing Company.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm going to be at Craft Lake City, the DIY Fest. You'll probably hear me before you see me. I'll be the one drinking Red Bull and eating beef jerky, and That's kind of my
And
my MO during markets.
just so people have proper spelling, it's RétroVie, right?
Correct.
Okay, yes.
It is the French, basically for past inspired living or past life. So RétroVie.
There you go. Yeah, _SLC on Instagram.
Yes, yes.
So I just want to make sure because it can be a little confusing sometimes for some of our audio listeners with that spelling on proper things. But Holly, I do want to thank you so much for coming down and having a conversation with us. It was very exciting to hear that whole process and everything you're doing with the shows, markets, and all your creative endeavors with that. But thank you again for joining us. Guys, that is going to be another awesome episode, another great guest, another great conversation on things that we're passionate about here. But if you guys like the show, please like, comment, subscribe. If you have any other makers, creators, artists in the Salt Lake City or greater Salt Lake City area, please let them know about us. We'd love to have conversations and share their drive, their passion, and all the stuff that they do in the creative world. But thanks again, Holly, for joining us, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.